Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, I was joined by writer and podcast host Shane Brennan as we review Week 2 of the 2025 NFL season. I waxed lyrical about the Packers defense. I think what I really loved is they can go zone, they can go man, and they can still get the job done, and they can still support team. And Shane discusses another Joe Burrow injury setback. Hope you all enjoy.
I think that the Bengals organisation need to realise that if you buy a Ferrari, but you don't buy a garage to lock it up in, don't complain when it gets robbed.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am as ever your host today, Andy Davis, as we review Week 2 of the 2025 NFL season. And as you can see with me, I've got a returning guest to the show. He is a part of the Irish NFL show and also a new venture for him, the Pat's Pal podcast, alongside fellow friend of the show, Sky Lawrence Pank. Shane Brennan's here. Shane, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on in the week that the Patriots has beaten the Dolphins for the first time in Miami in so long. I guess we will talk about that one. We're very much in prep mode because the first NFL Dublin game is in 12 days time, something like that. Like, we have a lot going on at that particular weekend. But no, it's good to catch up. Good to see you're doing well, even if the Dolphins aren't. Because look, I mean, to be fair, none of us can really feel sad or complain because NFL season is back in full swing, and after such a long off season, you really forget how much you miss sitting down on a Sunday with your glass of lemonade or whatever it is that keeps you going and watching Red Zone. It's the most beautiful thing in the world.
It really is. It really is. Now, it's, I think the first week always feels a bit surreal. It feels a bit like you aren't quite in that mode, you aren't quite in that rhythm. But then when you've got the week just gone, you've had the Thursday night game. You're used to that. Then you're used to the Sunday games, and you got the double header on the Monday. It is just when it starts rocking, the Premier League comes back as well. I think that was a real one for me. Was when we had last weekend both Premier League and NFL action on the same day in the same weekend. That was like, for me, I was thinking in my head, right, yeah, sport is back now.
Yeah, we're just missing the Grand Prix. That would have been the full trio of excellence if it comes to this time of year. But and look, a Man United losses on a Sunday as well always helps help boost the mood heading into a Red Zone.
I can't lie, F1 doesn't really tickle my fancy, but next weekend, I think the weekend of the Ireland game, not only do you have Premier League action, not only do you have the NFL action, something I'm really excited for, we got the Ryder Cup. So it's this great weekend.
I love the Ryder Cup. I hate the fact that I can't watch it this year because I'm going to be doing so much stuff around the Dublin game. Like, out of all the weeks you could have picked, you picked the week of the Ryder Cup to come to Dublin. I can't believe it. But like that weekend's going to be amazing. Women's Rugby World Cup final as well for people who are keeping an eye on. So yeah, this weekend, whatever. Last weekend in September is going to be absolutely nuts, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm just glad that they don't have the NFL season during the Masters, because the Masters for me is my favourite part of the golf season. I absolutely love the Masters, and I'm just glad that's not anywhere near the NFL season.
Well, that's because Jim Nantz can't be in both Buffalo, with Tony Romo and saying hello, friends, in Augusta National. Like, somebody smart is making sure that those two things are just kept separate.
Doesn't he do? He does the World Series, doesn't he? Or is that Al Michaels? Who does?
No, Joe Buck. Joe Buck did. Well, he doesn't do it anymore, but I think he's the record for most TV World Series called for Fox from the late 90s up until only a few years ago. Al Michaels does. He used to do ice hockey. I don't think he do. So he did the famous Miracle on Ice. That was an Al Michaels call. And then Kevin Harlan, who seems to do a lot of Dolphins games. So he does. He did the Broncos Colts game, I think, this weekend just gone. But yeah, he's there's one for the off season, Andy. We'll have to come back to that. You're the best, the top 5 NFL commentator duos, of which Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady are not in that group, in my opinion. Just putting that out there. But yeah,
that is absolutely penciling it in. We've already got one plan with Ben Isaacs. It's our top 10 Super Bowls we never got to see, and I think this one has to be one of our off-season top 10 episodes. let's get in the top 10 commentary duos or NFL commentary duos of all time. That could be quite the banger.
John Madden's going to appear in like 4 of those. But anyway.
Yeah, I've got in my head what my favorite is, but I know it's not the best. But I've got one in my head. I'll keep that to
I'm curious
myself.
now. I'm curious now.
You've got about 8 months, 7 months to wait for that answer now.
Ah, damn it! Now I want the all season to be back again. Actually, no, I don't. It's all right. I'll wait.
Well, let's head on to the week 2 action, and it started off on Thursday night. A pretty, not the most exciting game in the world. Packers Commanders, a 27-18 win for the Packers, but I don't think that score does it justice. I thought the Packers were completely dominant, and I really want to praise their defense in this game, how much they stifled Jaden Daniels and really just completely won that battle between the trenches. And I think we saw how good the Lions were this week. We'll get onto that in a bit, but how bad the Lions were against this Packers defense, and they've done it again, made the Commanders look average. I think you have to really praise how good this defense is being led by, and I've forgotten the DC's name, but he's doing a really good job at at scheming this defense. And I think what I really loved is they can go zone, they can go man, and they can still get a job done, and they can still haunt teams. I mean, Keyshawn Nixon was one of the guys that really took my breath away in that Commanders win. Micah Parsons had his moments, but I think he wasn't the star man. I think he's slowly getting the reps in. I think we'll see Micah Parsons become even more of a force, I think, as the season goes on. And I think definitely for me, he is a contender to be Defensive Player of the Year. I think with how the Packers defense is projected to be and how it's been so far, I think this Packers team could be a team to look out for in the whole NFC. I think we did our predictions episode prior to the Micah Parsons trade, and I think I had him third in our NFC North rankings. But now, with how good they've been so far, they're already got a game advantage over the Lions when it comes to head-to-head. I think this Packers team are legit, and I think the offense maybe hasn't been one of the best in the league so far, but I think this defense has been so good. I think that's going to, at times, I think, carry this team to win games. And I've been really, really impressed with this Packers team. What was your take on the game, and what was your take on this Packers defensive performance?
I'll start you off. It's Jeff Hafley is the defensive coordinator of the Packers. The reason I know that because he was, of course, used to be the head coach of Boston College. So one that I'm probably slightly aware of more than others. What's interesting about that, though, is that last year, you wouldn't necessarily have always said that the Packers' defensive game plan was their strength. It was about talent. It was about stopping the run. But when it came to the aerial defense, it was an area that they were lacking in. I think they've definitely changed that. But yet, oddly, it's in the front. The front of their defensive pack is where they've improved. Micah Parsons obviously being the headline act in that. But when in the offseason you see them to try to build up their front of players, you just assume that they're going to find a way to either get more sacks, get more quarterback pressure, and not necessarily trying to find ways to intercept passes or stifle the aerial offense. But yet what they managed to do here against Jaden Daniels is that for half of the passes Jaden Daniels attempted, they didn't, they went nowhere. That's very difficult to do against any quarterback, particularly Jaden Daniels. Now, I think Daniels was left to force to throw the ball way too much. Commanders don't have a run game, didn't display one against the Packers, didn't need to display one against the Giants because the Giants just kind of let Jaden Daniels work a lot more. That's a big problem for them to fix. It was very much an aerial offense, but I would have thought beforehand that if they were focusing so much on the aerial game, that would have attacked Green Bay's weakness, but that's just not the case. Schematically, they were so strong, and I watched back this game and watched back some of the tape, but just how dominant that the Packers felt. And it's very difficult. It's not the kind of thing you can put into a stat sheet as to how a team feels. Who do you feel is winning the game? Who do you feel is stifling everything? Who do you feel is always in control? We see that with the Lions a lot last year. We definitely saw it with the Lions this weekend when they completely dominated the Bears. Yet the Packers are so good at controlling games now. They made the Lions look weak on week one. Now, I know some people say, it's week one. Sometimes teams go in cold. The Lions are probably a team who came into that game more cold than most. But I think we can seriously sit back and look at this Packers team and say, okay, here's a real Super Bowl contender. If they weren't in the same conference as the Eagles, I would already be putting my money on them to be in Santa Clara. I think they've been so strong in the early part of this season. defensively in particular as an area that they needed to improve on. And they're only going to get better as long as they keep their players fit, particularly Michael Parsons. The more he gets into that system, I think he's really working well into the team. He's becoming a bit more of a team player. You look at then on the other side of things, Josh Jacobs, I think, is getting good return. Tucker Kraft as a player who managed to get a nice amount of receptions. My only question mark is over Jordan Love. But in fairness to Jordan Love, my big thing with Jordan Love and with the Packers when he's playing under center is that I always view him as a quarterback who has a tendency to give away passes too easily, to give away turnovers too easily. He hasn't thrown an interception since week 11 last year. And I think he got lucky with a couple of calls in between, not least against the Commanders as well. But he's becoming a lot tidier. It puts up a game now where when Jaden Daniels could only pass for 200 or can only master an offense that did a total of 230 yards, they're going over 400. And as well as that, they're reading situations better. And something that Jordan Love wasn't doing in that great second half of the season 2 years ago when they managed to get to the playoffs and beat the Cowboys. They did that on talent and flair. They didn't necessarily do that on good reading of situational football. That's different now. I think everything is right for this Packers team to go far. We're only 2 weeks in. Things will change very quickly, as anybody in Cincinnati will tell you. But I think we can really, really see the Packers as being the best team in the NFC North already. As much as I thought that the Vikings would probably be in a position to take that mantle, I think it's definitely the Packers. Potentially the best team in the NFC, better than anybody in the West, better than anybody in the South, and better than everybody in the East except for the Eagles. And depending on how they get on, I think if they need to keep building into the season. And as well as that, they go at the Browns, at the Cowboys, with the Cowboys being a very emotive game, but not a very difficult one that I'm expecting. Home to the Bengals, at Arizona, at Pittsburgh, home to the Panthers. They have a lot of easy games before they face the Eagles in the middle of November. So I'm very, very high on the Packers' potential this year.
Yeah, I think the way the NFL works, the top teams get the hardest schedule, and I think the Lions' schedule from memory is pretty brutal. And the one more thing about this defense before we go on to the next game is that Jaden Daniels led the league last year in first down gained from scrambles. Now in this game, he gained just 17 yards from 7 scrambles. I think that shows the kind of one of Daniels' key strengths, or one of his best features, is his ability to sort of change the game, flip the script with the kind of plays he makes with his legs. And I think the fact that they stopped him doing that as well, I think for me, just adds to their fuels to their fire and sort of adds to their strengths, and why, like you're saying, like many are saying, they're going to be a contender for the NFC. And I think they're going to lose probably 1 or 2 games. That they're going to have games where they don't perform well. They're going to have games where they lose. But I think if the Lions can carry on the momentum from the game against the Bears, which they won convincingly, and they could just keep up that one game or even get to level amount of wins, that second game between the Packers and Lions, in Ford Field, is going to be really important. I don't know what week that is of the season, but if it's like week 15, week 16, week 17, something like that, I think that's going to be such a crucial game, not only for the NFC North, but also just the NFC seedings in general.
Yeah, so that game, that rematch against the Packers, is at the end of November. I don't know what week that is. I think that is their 6th to last game in their schedule. So yeah, no, I take your, that's definitely going to be a big one. But unlike the Packers, who, as I outlined there, have a fairly easy run of it, look at who the Lions have to play. They have to go at Baltimore, at Cincinnati, which is a slightly easier task now, I think, in the next few weeks, at Kansas City. They still have to play the Vikings twice. They have to go at Washington. They have to go at Philadelphia. They have to play the Packers again. Later on in the year, they have to go at the LA Rams. And there's a few other things in there. That's a ridiculously difficult schedule for them to try and dominate their way through. This weekend's, I think, is a Monday Night Football game against the Ravens. Is definitely going to be the first big marker in that. The Packers don't have to face that level of adversity throughout the year. I think that's going to give them a boost when it comes to even where those teams are going to be standing by the time they face off in the end of November.
And a fun fact, I've just found out that is actually one of the Thanksgiving games this year. So that's going to be sensational.
Oh, but brilliant. That's, I'm booking it off already. Done.
Well, I think this one is it's 1 p.m. Eastern, so it's going to be the first game we get in the UK. So
Yeah,
about 6 p.m.
the Lions game is always the early one, and then the Cowboys game is always the kind of 9 o'clock kickoff on that Thanksgiving. So that's which is great because the Lions are for years were crap. You wouldn't bother watching them after school, years ago. Whereas now, like that game against the Packers is that's surely going to be the most watched Lions Thanksgiving game in history.
Yeah, it has to be surely. You think about that, and then the Chiefs and the Cowboys, probably one of the most viewed Thanksgiving slates ever. And there's one game later on between the Bengals and the Ravens, which was really exciting. But now, thanks to the news that came out of the Jags Bengals game in our 6 p.m. slate, that could be different. Now, Joe Burrow obviously played in the game and he got injured and he's now out for 3 months with a turf toe. It was a crazy game. They did beat the Jaguars 31-27, but it came at a cost. Burrow is out for 3 months, and once again, he's missing time with injury thanks to a poor offensive line. Now, Shane, I actually heard about 3 hours ago on my TikTok channel your views on this. It came out about Joe Burrow, and you said, I think I've seen a few people say it, that maybe Joe Burrow needs to move on from Cincinnati. Now, this is hard for him because he is Ohio native, he's from the area, but you kind of think the quarterback he is, you kind of think about the Eagles team that won the Super Bowl last year was an amazing O-line. The Lions team in the last few years since Penei Sewell came on board, Burrow is a player that if he had a good O-line, he would have won a Super Bowl by now. I'm so sure of it. If he had, the Eagles, AJ Brown playing there to throw to with a good O-line, Lions, same Brown, good O-line to play for. Burrow's the only quarterback really that has overcome, in some sense, a bad O-line because he made the Super Bowl, being the most sacked quarterback of the season. But I think for the kind of talent he has and the player he is, he just can't keep playing for a team that won't address the O-line. Now, they've had chance after chance to try and address the O-line. They got Orlando Brown last year. They got a guy this year, but you think about Shamir Stewart, you could have got an O-lineman there and got maybe a defensive lineman in the second round. It just seems like I saw a great article today on The Guardian about this. They're saying that the Bengals are playing franchise mode, and then they're not trying to build a team. They're just buying, again, the best players in. They're paying T. Higgins. They're paying Jamar Chase, but they're actually not addressing their biggest issue, which was defense, but they've got the Henderson contract. They've drafted Shamir Stewart to probably replace him next year. But the O-line, time after time again, is just not being addressed.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here when it comes to the Bengals and how top heavy their squad is. The first point that I'll make, and we were talking about this in the Irish NFL show we recorded last night, and I've had a bit of time to reflect on it since. I think that the Bengals organization need to realize that if you buy a Ferrari, but you don't buy a garage to lock it up in, don't complain when it gets robbed. Because you look at, and this is ESPN research that I'm quoting here, but you look at the quality of offensive line that Joe Burrow's had to work with. The 29th best in the league in 2020, the 30th in 21, 30th again in 22, 27th, that's the high watermark in 2023, last in the league last year, and 28th so far in the league this year. You remember even the year they got to the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow had to work for himself in the games when he regularly threw 2 or 3 interceptions. He was always under pressure, always getting hit. And Joe Burrow is a brave kind of guy. He's not going to duck out and, and run away from the challenge. He's a good Midwestern soul. He cut his teeth in the SEC. He's going to stay in the pocket and take what comes to him, which is fair enough. I don't blame him for that. There's a lot of quarterbacks who I would blame for not doing good enough to protect themselves from injury. I don't put Joe Burrow in that category. He has to play the way he plays to get the production rate that you get out of him. But the team has consistently decided that offensive line is not an area that need to focus on coaching. I think the coaching has to take a lot of blame here because you even look at Bengals head coach Zach Taylor and ask, all this time you have had this squad and you know this has been a big problem. Have you ever truly prioritized this in an off season? When it comes to the coaches you decide to bring in, when it comes to the players you decide to bring in and say, this has to be fixed now. Because that should have happened 3 years ago. Not even now. 3 years ago, that should have happened. Because Joe Burrow, came in with an injury before the 2023 season and had to miss a lot of games there, and that cost him. And then so that's one part to unpack. Then you look at where they're actually spending the money. And of course, it is the franchise mode thing, similar to other teams in the league. The Dolphins, for instance, I think are one of them. I'm not bringing it up because you're here. I do genuinely believe that there are some teams in the league who love spending all the money on the players whose jerseys you buy. And the Bengals, we have to remember, out of all the teams in the league, they're one of the worst in terms of income. Now, they're still one of like the top 50 biggest sports brands in the world. But in comparison to the rest of the NFL, they don't make a lot of cash. So selling jerseys means a lot to them. So keeping Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the team, that's not just a decision of let's keep the best wide receivers here. There is a financial element to that. People don't buy jerseys of offensive linemen unless your name is Jason Kelsey. That's just a fact of business. It's a fact of business that out of the 32 NFL teams, 27 or 28 don't even think about it because they're making so much money from about 12 other different places. But the Bengals are one of those teams. I mean, they sold the naming rights to their stadium so they can fund the money they're paying not Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, his contract. That let's not forget about that's the way that this team works, and it's how they're trying to prioritize. Now, the benefit of that is that when Jake Browning played under center, he didn't have protection. He threw away a lot of stupid interceptions, but when he got the ball to T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, they made good plays, and that's how the Bengals won that game, and that's going to be a key asset to them. At least in that they have playmakers who can make the difference, and I think that means that not all hope is lost for Cincinnati going over the next couple of weeks. But the third element to this I want to touch on is Joe Burrow's role in the squad that he's playing with. He has had plenty of influence in letting the team know who he wants to play with and who he doesn't. And he wanted his wide receivers to stay. He didn't turn around and say, okay, guys, maybe it's more prudent if I get better protection here, even if that means that one of T. Higgins or Jamar Chase does not play for Cincinnati next year. Like, he's not blameless in that regard in terms of the actual setup of the squad. Now, am I attributing any more than 5 or 10% of the blame to him? No. Because it's down to the head coach and general manager to take control of this. When players make decisions about personnel, it doesn't work well. Ask the New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Ask the Las Vegas Raiders just in general, because Max Crosby has got way too much power in that dressing room. And this is one where Joe Burrow, because he is the face of the franchise, because he's the local kid, because he's the only reason that people outside of Ohio talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, he brought him to the Super Bowl. He gets all this money, what, $50-something million a year? They listen to him when he says he wants to keep his top wide receivers. But that wasn't the best decision for the team. And they're paying for it now. So it is funny how the Bengals have started 2-0, getting the scrappy win against a Jaguars team who threw it away because their wide receivers couldn't catch a cold. Never mind anything else. They dropped a lot of easy balls from Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, by the way, doesn't look like his relationship with Liam Cohen is starting off very well. Interesting to see what shape they look in when they play against the Rams in Wembley in the end of October. But they're 2-0 in September, which is something that they would have absolutely given anything for before the season, except for Joe Burrow's injury. And now that Joe Burrow's injured, they've gone from, we're in the driver's seat here to, Jesus, let's hope we get a wild card and Joe Burrow's fit for January. So at least if we're in the playoffs, we can shake it up, because it's going to be a struggle to try and keep their head above water here.
It really is. It really is. I mean, it completely, that kind of injury, I think, could more or less, kill their Super Bowl hopes, because if they're going to make the playoffs now, unless Jake Browning turns into, Nick Foles 2.0, they're going to be most likely at best a 4 seed in the AFC. Most likely, behind the Ravens.
They're not winning that division over the Ravens unless the Ravens have a big injury.
But that is the ultimate ceiling.
Like they're looking, I think it's 6 and 7 seed is what they're aiming for now. It kind of depends on what point of the season Joe Burrow comes back, because if he is out for 3 months, he might still come back with 4 games left, which could be interesting. And they already have 2 wins, which they don't usually have this time of year, so a bit of a mix. But no, I think now, unless the Ravens somehow start to bottle things, I think they have this division sewn up now. No?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the only thing that, again, like the Bengals, that could stop the Ravens is an injury to Lamar Jackson, and that's literally the only thing. But I don't recall Lamar Jackson ever really being injured much in his NFL career. And but I think Jake Browning, I think there's been talks about, do they go out and get Kirk Cousins? But I think you've got Jake Browning there who knows the offensive playbook. You haven't got to have a new guy in trying to get him to learn the playbook. So Rich Eisen said he reckons he would start above third of the starting quarterbacks right now, which I don't personally agree with. I agree with a lot of things which Eisen says. I don't agree with that, but I think you can get a guy there who does know a lot the offense and how it works, and that will certainly help. And I think week 3, of course, they're up against potentially Carson Wentz with JJ McCarthy also injured. He got injured in their defeat on Sunday Night Football to the Falcons, 22-6. Sorry, 22-6. So that can give them a chance to go 3-0. And I know there's a big stat about teams that go 0-3. Not many make the playoffs. I think 3-0 is probably a good stat about teams making the playoffs based on 3-0. But yeah, the Bengals for me, it's almost a case of once again looking at next year, because but the Bengals they get hot every year late on in the season, but they never normally start well. So I'm intrigued to see how they'll end the season. I think if they can just stay in that sort of, I don't know, 6-5, 7-6, 8-7 when Burrow comes back to the team, I think that then, if he's got 4 games left and he's even half of the quarterback we know he can be, I think the Bengals could just sneak in as maybe that 7th seed or maybe the 6th seed. Speaking of the AFC North, the Ravens did beat the Browns by 41-17. The Cowboys beat the Giants in a overtime thriller by 40-37. And as I said before, the Lions beat the Bears by 52 points to 21. And the Niners beat the Saints 26-21. And the Bills beat the Jets 30-10. And the Seahawks beat the Steelers 31-17. But our next game is a game that is close to both of our hearts, as my team, the Dolphins, took on the New England Patriots, which of course is your team, Shane. I was watching this game with a friend of mine, Hal. Shout out to Hal if you are listening, because I know you are. Watched it in his cabin, which is an amazing man cave he's got in South Wales in Cardiff. And I was watching it, thinking, oh my God, we're actually going to do this. We're actually going to beat the Patriots. And I said we win the game before the game started. I was confident in the win because of Tua's record against the Patriots. But then when Matt Collins scores, when it goes 12-0 up, I thought I might just go home now. It was that bad. And then it just seemed something changed in the offense. And then pretty much most of the game, particularly the second and third quarter, the offense just was much improved. Tua was making some good throws. Waddle off, he got his touchdown. Hill was getting involved with making some plays, and A-Chain was once again the star of the offense. And I was really confident for a lot of the game that we were going to do it. And then obviously when the craziest part of the game, I think we all know what happens here, is that we scored from a punt return at Malik Washington, our first one since 2020 season. Jakeem Grant, who got that back in that COVID season. But then, literally, I was watching the game, like I said before, with Hal in his cabin, and I thought, this is a good time to go for a wee. I go for a wee, and I'm telling his wife, we've just scored a punt return. I was telling her all about how we're winning the game, and it's been such a bad start to the year. I come back into the cabin, and I'm seeing Antonio Gibson celebrating.
Did you see Mike Vrabel sprinting down the sideline? Yeah. That was the big one.
That was. I mean, I would, if I was a fan of the Titans back in the day or the Patriots now, I would absolutely love Vrabel. And Vrabel is such a likable coach. I think has the passion. And I was, even though I'd just seen my team concede a kick return and I was seeing the celebrations, I can't deny that was a pretty special moment. I thought, towards the end, I thought we were going to do it. I thought we were, handling it well. We were biggest and most plays, and then A-Chain, we thought he'd scored the winning touchdown with that amazing running play for out of bounds. And in the end, job didn't get done. Patriots won. But I've got to say, McDaniel's clock management, again, was nothing short of a disgrace in this game. I'm not going to lie. The amount of times I've seen him, throughout the whole time he's been a Dolphins fan, make these stupid timeouts. It was like third or fourth play in the third quarter, he was making a timeout. And then there was one play, I remember it vividly, where Tua was looking at his, looks like a watch on his arm. He was looking to call the play. I was looking at the play clock. There was 10 seconds left. In 35, 40 seconds on the play clock? How are you then what are you doing in those 20 seconds? I don't get it. I don't get how amount of times I've seen two are trying to make a play with 5 seconds left on the play clock. It's just taken that long for a play to get called out. Now, whether that's on Tua, whether that's on McDaniel, don't know. But for me, I was just that me was really annoying. There was some silly penalties given away. There was a penalty on 3rd and 25 as well. Frankly, didn't matter in the end. I don't think the Patriots scored more than a field goal on that drive. But yeah, there was so much frustration. I feel like this is the game that we could have definitely nicked and definitely won. But what was your thoughts? Patriots fan, of course. You've got a Patriots podcast. You were big in on the game. What was your take on that performance from both the Patriots and the Dolphins in general?
I'll start with the Dolphins because they were frustrating in a lot of aspects, because you talk about Achan and how good he was offensively, but he was good because when they passed him the ball, he got going. When it came to him running the ball, the run game went absolutely nowhere. I think I'm right in saying he attempted 11 carries and got a grand total of 30 yards, which isn't a lot. But yet when he passed the ball, there was a lot more ground gain. And I was talking to Sky, my Pascal co-host. We haven't done enough podcasts, by the way, which is on both of us. But he was at the game. He was in Miami, and he was saying that the big problem with the Patriots, and we saw this in Wembley last year, we saw this in a lot of areas, in that if they have a good start, there will come a period in the game where they lose concentration. And that's when the Dolphins built back into the game. And at that point, I actually didn't think that the Patriots would wrest control of the game back again. What we were fortunate in that we were playing against a Miami team that is a very bad defensive setup, very bad at defensive tackling, doesn't get many turnovers. Even when they pressure Drake May, once Drake May had the extra half second, he found Ramondre Stevenson plenty of times. The run game got a lot of traction, which I think the Patriots could take some credit for, but I think the Dolphins need to look at their run defense for certain aspects as well. But the big thing for me is that this was really one that got away, in that at near the end of the game, Achan takes the ball, brings into the end zone for what would have been the winning touchdown, gets called back because in the run, he somehow lost his spatial awareness that his left foot touched the touchline, which meant he was out of bounds at around the 25-yard line. I think it was in that ballpark, which he wasn't even under pressure when he stepped out. Like, it was just complete, what are you doing kind of play, as in he's not focusing where his feet is. Amateur mistake. It comes back to the drive that Miami end up taking 4 downs and wasting 4 downs. They're 6 points down at this point, so a field goal does nothing for you. And in it, they're dithering so much about what the play call is that Mike McDaniel has to waste his time out. Similar to what you were saying there when it comes to the clock management. Who's on the field making the calls when it comes to running the 2-minute offense? Where's the rush to put the nail into the Patriots when the defense basically leaked a very easy touchdown that the Patriots were very lucky was called back? Go for the kill. That's what the Dolphins did 2 years ago. They went for the kill. That's what the Dolphins have done for all of Tua's time as quarterback against the Patriots. He was 7-0 against the pass going to this. Go for the kill. Just didn't happen. And the Patriots were lucky in that, because I think the Patriots have a lot more work. People are looking at this and saying, okay, I can see the improvements in the Pats. No. Defensively, the Pats were soft, I think, to use a phrase that Draw Mayo used last year in the Wembley game. Let in a lot of tackles in space. Tyreek Hill got a lot. Tyreek Hill was quite productive. And I think credit has to be given to the Dolphins offense that when concentration started being lost, that they managed to work in the right scheme at the right time. Tyreek Hill got a lot of return. But the Patriots at that point defensively, were leaving a lot of gaps. We're missing Christian Gonzalez bad, I think. So I equated this when we were talking about it last night as watching a very entertaining League Two football match. But these are in a league where they should be Premier League standard. And defensively, they're not Premier League standard. So it ended up being an entertaining game. You can look at the yards and statistics, and some of the good passes. The one that Drake May had to the right hand side to Ramondre Stevenson was really sweet. I think Drake May had a much better game. It was much more mistake free but not quite as explosive. And as well as that, I think he hit 9 different receivers throughout this game. But unlike what Tua has had with Hill and Waddle, May hasn't had a guy to go to when he's stuck in a jam. He doesn't have. Most quarterbacks have the number one guy. I can't tell you who the number one receiver is in New England. I couldn't tell you it all last year. I don't know. I don't think Josh McDaniel knows. I don't think Jake May knows. I don't think anybody knows who's the number one guy. Because last year Hunter Henry was the guy getting the most ball, and this year so far it's Ramon Stevenson. Like the Diggs, maybe Keyshawn Booty, maybe Matt Collins, and he got 1 reception, which ended up being a touchdown. Mario Douglas, I don't know. One of those wide receivers has to step up for me. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge now for the Patriots going forward. Is somebody has to step up and be the guy, the Julian Edelman to the Tom Brady here. And yeah, that is my take on both teams. A frustrating one for Dolphins fans, and I'm expecting. And thank you, by the way, for accepting my invitation to join the Irish NFL show for our Thursday night review later on in the week. Because of a funny feeling that when that game is done, we will be talking about the ex-Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel.
I mean, it's got me thinking about who's going to be there in Madrid if that does happen. The Madrid game, I'm just picturing who's going to be there. People are saying John Gruden. I think that is, for me, that's not the guy at all to have going forward. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Anthony Weaver getting the promotion to head coach, but I just don't think, after seeing how bad our defense has been, even though it was good last year down the stretch, I don't have much faith in him.
So just to point on that, and I think I said it to you in our we were chatting on WhatsApp earlier. I sent you on the link to talk about the defensive coordinator, Weaver. Yeah, Weaver. Like, do you remember in Vegas when what's his name got the job?
The interim coach? Oh my God,
his
name? Anthony Pierce. Anthony Pierce?
Yes.
Yeah.
Antonio Pierce. Good enough. Anthony Pierce. Tony. All right, Tony. Do you remember when he got the job? Like, he was the guy that was already in there that the players liked, and there was a nice southern burst where, like, okay, the Raiders are looking good now because player power is taking control here. They've gotten rid of the guy that they don't want. Interestingly, also called McDaniel. Got rid of the guy that they don't want. They're playing nicely here, and then they keep him on for a year in a time they shouldn't have kept it on for an extra year, and it completely went downhill. I could see a similar trajectory happening here with Anthony Weaver, that if Anthony Weaver comes in, even though he's a defensive coordinator of defense, I don't think has performed very well at all, has performed terribly, in fact, the last 2 weeks, and didn't show himself in great colors at a lot of areas last year, although they were better in the offense, I think, in a more consistent sense. I could see there being a burst that in October and November, which includes that Madrid game, the Dolphins are playing nicely, and then there becomes an off-season debate as to whether he stays on as head coach. And if he does then stay on as head coach, I think you'll set yourself up for failure next year. I could see that pathway happening here.
I think what we need someone who's going to basically tell him what's what. I mean, McDaniel's problem, I think, part of it is he wants to be everyone's friend, and I think at times you don't really, as a head coach, I think you have to have that leadership. You have to have that almost that edge about you. Think of all the great coaches in many different sports. They have that fear factor. Whereas if you're still as a soft touch, like I think McDaniel is a soft touch, I think that causes problems for the whole locker room mentality. They can get away with murder. Tyreek Hill late for meetings reportedly last year. So I think for me, someone like Weber would have been perfect for the Dolphins, and I still would like Brian Flores. I didn't agree with his firing at all, I think he would have sorted some stuff out. Who cares? It didn't get on with the quarterback. Belichick and Brady didn't get on with their quarterbacks, with each other even. So yeah, for me, we need someone that's going to almost be a disciplinary guy, just to basically keep everyone in line. We are running low on times. We are going to have to end the episode here, sadly. But before we do end it, there were wins for the Cardinals over the Panthers, the Eagles over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl rematch. As it before, the Vikings did lose to the Falcons. The Buccaneers narrowly beat the Texans in a thriller, and the Chargers beat the Raiders after a Geno Smith disaster class. Shane, before we do go, you mentioned the Irish game in Dublin next week. You've got a live show next weekend. Tell the audience all about that next weekend.
Yeah, we were fortunate to have CBS analyst and two-time Super Bowl winner Bryant McFadden. Every time I say that, people are like, Brian McFadden from Westlife? No, Bryant McFadden, the guy who played cornerback for the Steelers. He's going to be live with us in the Arlington Hotel in Dublin City Centre. It is a free show. It does cost a few quid to book the table, but that's the hotel side. That's not us. It's the show itself is free. It's open for anybody who wants to come in. I believe you're going to be knocking around Dublin. I think we're also planning on doing another show on the Friday night. I don't have any major details on that, but our big things on the Saturday night. I'm looking forward to it. Brian is a really exciting kind of character. Has been in the Bill Carroll locker room, the Mike Tomlin locker room. There's a lot of really good analysis work for CBS. So I'm sure we'll be talking a little bit about the game here, but it'll be more about sort of getting the crack and getting to know what it's like to be an NFL player. He's a really, really essential character. And I'm really, really looking forward to having that show. The last I heard, the room that we're in is booked out. So we were originally going to try and accept walk-ins, but I'd say if anybody looks up the Irish NFL show and is interested in joining that, there might still be some room. So make sure you check it out if you're in Dublin for the weekend. And like I said, it's a free show, free in. Come in and enjoy the crack, as you say here, because it's going to be a good hour and a half, 2 hours or so fun with added raffle. I think we haven't announced this yet, but we have a couple of little prizes to give away in the night as well.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to it a lot. Boys from the franchise tag as well are going to be there. Friends of the show, of course, Freddie, as well as others as part of the podcast will be there. So you're looking forward to that whole weekend. And it should be a cracking one. And before we do go, Shane, first of all, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, all good. It's always good to come on and talk NFL. It's gas when I was texting you earlier being like, yeah, I'm sure we can do like 25 minutes, whatever. And then, of course, as soon as you get into it, we could go on for an hour. That's just there's so much going on. It's almost like when there's I love Red Zone when there's 8 games on, but then at the same time, you're like, kind of wish a couple teams are on a bye so I could focus on a lot of different things here. So, shouldn't go play though. We had 9 games on the early window, which I don't think I've ever. It wasn't the Octo Box. It was the Red Zone Rubik's Cube. We were treated to. That was good crack.
Yeah, it was amazing, and I was watching the Channel 5 coverage today, so I didn't get to see the Cowboys Giants game on Red Zone, the Jags Bengals game.
You have to do the old 2-screen approach. I always have the Patriots game on the laptop, Red Zone on the TV. So I mean, like genuinely, if you get the full replay of the crazy ending, I think they put up the crazy endings of the Cowboys Giants game. Watch it. It's just. Holy God, it was so good. And it's really good as well because in the Irish NFL show, there's 7 of us on the team and 3 of them were Giants fans. So seeing their live reactions to every little thing was was quite a treat.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I do normally have the double screen, but I was, at Hull, so I couldn't have, brought out my iPad and stuff like that for it. But certainly next week, actually, we're not on Red Zone next week. We're playing Thursday night, but certainly when Dolphins are next on Red Zone, that's going to be my target. But this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our week 2 review with myself, your host, as ever, Andy Davis, and our guest today, writer and podcast host, Shane Brennan. And we'll see you guys for our week 3 preview. Take care.